Don't you dare sit there. The voice cut through the quiet like glass shattering. Clara James froze, a porcelain teacup trembling between her hands. A drop of tea slid down her wrist as she turned toward the doorway. A teenage boy stood there, framed by the golden morning light spilling across the marble floor. Preston Aldrich, tall, smug, the heir to a fortune he hadn't earned, smirked as his friends filed in behind him, phones already out, cameras gleaming. "Well," he said, stepping closer. "You deaf or just stupid?" Clara set the cup down carefully on the polished oak table. "Good morning, sir." Her voice was even, calm, too calm for his liking. "Sir," Preston mocked, his grin widening. "You think you can sit at my family's table and call me sir?" He glanced at his friends. "Look at this. She's making herself comfortable like she owns the place." "Preston." His mother's voice came from across the room. Grace Aldridge's smile was tight as wire. "She's new. I told her to sit and have some tea. Don't start." "Oh, I'm not starting," he said, circling Clara like a cat playing with a bird. "I'm teaching." His eyes gleamed. "Rule number 1. Help doesn't sit where the family eats." Clara rose instantly, smoothing her apron. "Your mother was kind. I didn't mean any disrespect." "Sure you didn't." He grabbed the coffee pot from the tray beside her, steam curling up like smoke. "Maybe you need a reminder of your place." "Preston," Grace snapped, stepping forward. But he'd already tilted the pot. The coffee cascaded down Clara's hair and shoulders, burning through fabric and skin. Gasps filled the room. One of the guests screamed. A phone hit the floor with a thud. Clara's hands tightened around the edge of the table until her knuckles turned white. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She just stood there, trembling slightly, her jaw locked. Preston blinked, waiting for her to cry, to shout, to beg. But she didn't. When she finally lifted her head, her gaze was steady, cold, and unreadable. "You'll regret that," she said quietly. The room went still. At that moment, Richard Aldridge strode in, phone to his ear, business suit crisp. "What the hell is going on?" Grace turned toward him. "Your son just." Richard froze when he saw Clara, drenched, steaming, motionless, and Preston, holding the empty pot like a weapon gone cold. "Preston." His tone was thunder. "What did you do?" She was sitting at your chair," the boy stammered. "She was pretending to be. She was following your mother's instructions," Richard barked. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" "She's just a maid." "That maid," Richard said, voice like steel, "has more dignity than you've shown in your entire life." Clara took a slow breath, setting the tray back on the table with trembling hands. "Please," she said softly, "don't argue because of me." Grace tried to hand her a towel. Clara shook her head. "It's fine, ma'am. I've been through worse." Preston scoffed. "Oh, please. Stop acting like some tragic hero." Clara stepped forward until they were inches apart. The room held its breath. "A hero?" she said quietly. "No. I just know what it takes to stand back up after being knocked down." Preston's smirk faltered. "What's that supposed to mean?" Clara's eyes didn't leave his. "It means tomorrow, I'm not cleaning your mess. I'm teaching you what discipline really looks like." His friends laughed uncertainly, but something in her tone, calm, dangerous, made even them shift back. Richard studied her, puzzled. "Teaching?" Clara met his gaze. "Yes, sir. Before I took this job, I trained national champions, in a discipline your son could use a lesson in." The silence stretched. Preston's face reddened. Clara picked up the towel, wiped her hands, and gave a small nod. "I'll see you in the gym tomorrow morning. 5 a.m. sharp." Then she turned and walked out, the smell of coffee and burnt pride lingering in her wake. "Say it like you mean it." Richard Aldridge's voice was sharp enough to cut the air in half. Preston swallowed hard. His hands fidgeted at his sides, his friend's phone still trained on him, recording every second of his humiliation. "Whatever," he muttered. "Sorry." Clara James stood across the room, her uniform still damp from where the coffee had burned through it. A faint steam rose from her sleeve, but her expression didn't waver. "I accept your apology," she said quietly. "But one day, you'll understand that respect isn't demanded, it's earned." She turned to leave. As her shoulder brushed the edge of the table, the pain from the burn shot up her neck, sharp and bright, but she didn't make a sound. Grace Aldridge hurried after her, voice trembling. "Please, Clara, let the doctor see that burn." Clara paused at the doorway. "No need. I've trained through worse pain. Trained, Grace repeated. Old habits, Clara said softly, then walked away, her spine straight, her steps steady. Behind her, whispers filled the air. She didn't even cry, one of Preston's friends muttered. What's her deal? Another whispered. Richard turned to his son, his voice low and dangerous. If that woman walks out of this house, you walk out too. Do you understand me? Preston's jaw clenched. She's just a maid. No, Richard said coldly. She's the only one here who acted with dignity. In the kitchen, Clara rinsed her shoulder under cold water. The burn stung, but it wasn't the pain that made her grip the counter. It was the memory, the silence, the humiliation, the familiar heat of anger she'd buried years ago. Never again, she whispered. Unless I have to. But deep down, she already knew she would. The mansion buzzed all afternoon. The video had leaked online before the guests could delete it, and whispers spread faster than wildfire. Preston tried to laugh it off. She's probably gone by now. Couldn't handle a little heat. But when he passed the kitchen that evening, she was still there. Folding napkins with the same quiet focus, a clean white bandage peeking from under her sleeve. You're still here, he muttered. Work isn't finished, Clara replied. You should have quit. I don't run from things that scare me. Preston scoffed. I don't scare you. Clara looked up, her gaze calm and sharp. You remind me of someone I used to train. He thought power was about shouting, until he met someone stronger. Preston's smirk faltered. Oh yeah? You think you're stronger than me? I know I am, she said. But strength isn't about hurting people. It's about control. Something you haven't learned yet. Before he could answer, Richard appeared in the doorway. Both of you. My office. Now. The study felt colder than usual. Richard sat behind his desk, his expression carved from stone. Preston, your school saw the video before I could stop it. The sponsors have called. Reporters too. You've embarrassed this family. Preston's face drained of color. Someone posted it. Yes. And the whole world saw you pour scalding coffee on a woman who never once raised her voice. I didn't mean. You meant to show power, Richard cut in. Instead, you showed weakness. Sir, Clara said quietly, please, don't ruin his life over this. I've seen plenty of boys punished without learning a thing. Let me handle it. Preston blinked. Handle what? Clara turned to him. Tomorrow morning. The gym behind the house. Be there. Richard studied her for a moment, then nodded. Do it. Maybe he'll learn from someone who actually understands strength. The next morning, the gym smelled of dust and echoes. Preston stepped inside, still half asleep, dressed in designer sweats. Clara stood on the mat in a simple tracksuit, her hair tied back, her face unreadable. Take your shoes off, she said. He scoffed. You can't be serious. I'm always serious. He stepped onto the mat, rolling his shoulders. So what? You gonna lecture me about feelings? No, Clara said. I'm going to show you what control feels like. She moved before he could blink. One moment she was still. The next, his wrist was twisted, his body off balance, and he hit the mat with a thud that knocked the air from his lungs. Lesson 1, she said, her tone even. Power without discipline destroys you first. Preston gasped, eyes wide. How did you what? I taught self-defense for 15 years, she said. Black belt. 3-time regional champion. I stopped fighting after I broke my spine protecting a student. Promised myself I'd never raise my hand again. Until yesterday. Preston stared at her, speechless. Clara released him gently. I didn't hurt you. I just reminded you you're not invincible. Remember this pain before you give it to someone else. Something shifted in Preston's eyes, a crack in the arrogance. I'm sorry, he whispered. Not because my dad said so. Because you could have fought back, and you didn't. Clara nodded once. Then maybe you're worth forgiving. That evening, the family gathered again in the dining room. Preston stood beside Clara, his head bowed. I have something to say, he began, voice unsteady. What I did was cruel. I thought money meant I could treat people like they were beneath me. But she showed me I don't own anything, not even respect. Clara's expression softened. Apology accepted. Just make sure it means something tomorrow. Grace wiped a tear. Clara, please stay. We need people like you. Clara smiled faintly. You don't need me, ma'am. You need what I taught your son, respect. She turned to leave. The chandelier light glinted off her bandage as she reached the door. Thank you for the lesson, Richard said quietly. She paused. It wasn't just for him. Then she stepped out into the night. the cool air washing over her burned skin. Inside, Preston stared at the empty doorway. She could have hurt me, Dad. Richard nodded. That's what real strength looks like, son, knowing when not to. And from that night on, Preston Aldridge never raised his voice at anyone who worked under his roof again. If this story struck a chord, remember, respect costs nothing, but it changes everything.